Okay, so I've got three different theories about what Mr. Miyagi's big secret could be for the remainder of Season 6 of Cobra Kai. Before we go into these theories, I want to state that if you have not caught up on Cobra Kai, you might not have any idea what I'm talking about. Make sure you're caught up, including with the 5 episodes that have aired on Netflix, the first 5. In other words, Season 6, Part 1. That's where this first sort of mystery is unearthed, and we're going to examine clues there to help us determine what these 3 prevailing theories could be about what Miyagi's secret is. So make sure you check that out, but I'm going to assume from now on, you know what I'm talking about. Also, if you're new to World of Geekdom, you know how it is, man. Hit the buttons, the like, the subscribe. Even if you're not new, hit the like. It does help me out. So, and of course, actually, I would love to hear, when you get done with the video, I would love to hear which of these 3 theories you think is the most likely, and any others you think could actually make sense. So there's a few different ways they could take this story. Obviously the creators, the big 3 as they say, already know. But if we look at what's inside of the chest that Miyagi left behind in his home, we found a coin that was from China, an old, what appears to be a driver's license, and a report about a crime that was committed, and the headband of the Sekai Taikai tournament that Miyagi presumably wore with bloodstains on it. So if you saw the video that I did the other day where I talked about the ending of Cobra Kai and I gave a bunch of different predictions, it was almost just me dumping all of my thoughts out. I'm going to go to that theory first before we move on to the other 2. And that theory, and I want to expound upon it a bit, is the idea that Miyagi actually did have a dark side. And that Miyagi did compete in the Sekai Taikai tournament, but perhaps at the time, the rules of the tournament were different. Maybe it wasn't just point karate. Maybe it was actually a situation where, I don't want to say it was a fight to the death, but maybe it was a knockout or submission type of situation. And maybe Miyagi was threatened prior to the fight that he would have to fight for his life. If you remember in the original Karate Kid film, he says he never fought in the tournament for points, just for his life. So the rules could have been different, and maybe he felt like, you know, it was sort of like when Obi-Wan said, you know, Vader betrayed and murdered your father. Yes, I did fight in a tournament, but it wasn't this kind of tournament, and I did fight for my life. It could be one of those situations, which I do think that could anger a few fans. But me, I like the idea of Miyagi having his own arc. Pat Morita's no longer with us. Could you do a Miyagi prequel series? That was discussed by the creators of Cobra Kai, maybe doing something like that. So we can't in any way have Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi tell us the story. So the idea that Daniel's finding out about this because Miyagi is ashamed that he did have a dark side when he was younger does make sense. Because like I stated before, Miyagi is a character, and like many of us in the Miyagi verse and even in the real world, we go through our own arcs. We do dumb things when we're younger. We do wrong things when we're younger. And maybe that tournament, maybe competing in the original Sekai Taikai, is what actually made him into the Miyagi that we got to know and love in the original Karate Kid trilogy. So I like the idea of Daniel's foundation being somewhat shaken by this, but ultimately his understanding of, yeah, he wasn't really a bad guy his whole life, and he made mistakes when he was younger, but that's okay because we all do. So that's one way of having it work. Of course, another way you can do the same kind of theory, and this is not part 2 or theory 2. This is just another way of doing it, is to say that Miyagi just straight up lied to Daniel and he was ashamed of himself. He didn't want to remember his past, and he lied. So that's one right there. That's a possibility. Okay, theory number 2 is that the Miyagi that is in the chest, even though it might be Miyagi, that the criminal actually wasn't Mr. Miyagi. It could be a close friend, a relative, and Mr. Miyagi maybe took the fall for him as a favor. That's another possibility. It could clearly be that Mr. Miyagi, the real one, the one that trained Daniel, is a good man, always was a good man, and made a self-sacrifice for somebody close to him, and that's why that stuff was kept in there, maybe for memory purposes, to keep it locked away. I don't really know, but it could be a situation where Miyagi just hid this small sort of sacrifice that he made from everybody because it may have been irrelevant to him. Now, that of course begs the question about the Sekai Taikai and the blood. It could also be that the objects in this chest are unrelated. What I mean is, the coin from China, I've talked about how that could lead into Miyagi knowing Han from the 2010 Karate Kid, who is confirmed for the next Karate Kid film coming out next year, not the one from 94, the one coming out next year. And that could lead into how Daniel ends up meeting up with him. Or it could be part of this story, or it could be that each object is something different, and that maybe in the Sekai Taikai, things got serious and there was blood involved. Maybe it wasn't Miyagi's blood. Maybe that headband was from somebody who Miyagi fought, or somebody who he witnessed fight. Maybe a student, somebody in the same school as him. It could have been a lot of different possibilities there. In other words, Miyagi's totally innocent and it's somebody else. And Miyagi just has all these objects that represent different things. Maybe the Chinese coin was a gift given to him by someone. There's multiple theories for every single object inside of that chest. Now, theory number 3 follows along with that one a bit more, and that is that Miyagi may have had a brother. Now, the reason why the brother theory even could remotely make sense is because Miyagi's brother, you know, who may look a lot like him, could end up leading to Daniel and others finding out about another style of Miyagi-Do, or possibly even another school of Miyagi-Do somewhere else, possibly in China, possibly somewhere else in Japan outside of Okinawa. So this theory to me is probably the one that's least likely, because the long lost brother thing, I mean, it almost comes off like a joke at this point. It almost comes off like a trope that all these series tend to do to protect the main character. And we just kind of saw that in The Acolyte. And I know that obviously the creators of Cobra Kai didn't watch The Acolyte before making their show, so they could have had a similar idea. But I don't like that, because it just seems almost too easy. It just seems like Daniel's going to get all bent out of shape over nothing, and it really doesn't provide that much growth for Daniel as the first couple theories do, because at least with the theory that Miyagi made a sacrifice, it could show that maybe Daniel doesn't always have to put himself above others. And I'm not saying that he always did that, but there have been times where he's been selfish, including in Season 6, Part 1, where he kind of swindled Johnny out of training the kids for a couple days. So there are ways for Daniel to learn from the first two theories. The first one to me is just the most interesting, because for him to understand that his master was not so bad or not so great and wasn't perfect is almost like the reverse of Kreese, where he has a good side surrounded by a lot of black, a lot of, you know, like a black heart, a lot of negativity, whereas with Miyagi, his positive side is way bigger than his negative side. That could be sort of a parallel between the two masters that trained our two main characters. So that, I think, makes sense. The twin brother, it doesn't have to be twin brother, but, you know, slightly younger brother, slightly older brother. If the date of births don't match, then maybe it is a much older brother. I just don't, I like the idea that Miyagi lied about his age, but also with the fact that Daniel's wife said, well, people lie about their age all the time. Like, it's almost that they're telling us that's not going to be it, but it could also be that that's just a small sample of what the real story is. And they're going to reveal it to us with these last two parts coming out in November and next year. So Anyways, man, what do you think? Leave your theories in the comments and your thoughts on these three, and I'll see you in the next one.